וכן תהיו מלוכים, וקובעתם ולכם ולכם. What do you mean, Rabbi? Let's talk a little bit about the mitzvah of Kriyat Shema for women. Right? What is the obligation for women regarding Kriyat Shema? So the truth is that mitzvah Kriyat Shema is mitzvah taseh she'azman grama. It's considered to be a time-bound positive mitzvah. So therefore, it says the Gemara, the Mishnah says the women are patur. They're exempt from this mitzvah. So the question is, if they're patur, why do they say it then? Because women have the minhag to say Kriyat Shema also. When they say Kriyat Shema, they say when they pray Amidah, in the morning, Shachrit, whatever, they try to do Shachrit, they try to do Kriyat Shema over there, the first paragraph at least, first pasuk and first paragraph, and then what they do is from there they go to Amidah, they get into the Amidah. So what is a woman's obligation for prayers, basically? The obligation is like this, right? When she gets up, she says Modeh, like we do, same thing, right, as a man. Then she does Asher Yatzar, goes to the bathroom. Netilat Yadayim, she makes Netilat Yadayim. She washes her hands, just like the men do. Does she have to do Birkat HaShachar? Yes, she has to do Birkat HaShachar. So she has to do that, and she has to do also Birkat HaTorah. Right? Birkat HaTorah she also has to do. Why do women have to do Birkat HaTorah? But they're exempt from Torah study, The Torah says, right, that women are not obligated to study Torah. So why do they do Birkat HaTorah? For what? They're not shaykh in the mitzvah.
That right? Bracha might be covering for those learning. Maybe it covers for not learning this bracha.
But they're not obligated to learn, so what are they blessing on? Right? What? You're blessing on something, Asher Kedishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu. Mi mitziva otcha? Who commanded you to tell me v'tzivanu? So why they bless on Birkat HaTorah? Women. So the answer is that even though they're not obligated to learn Torah, but they are obligated to know the halachot, the practical halachot, that we have to live by. Like, the kitchen, kashrut, laws of family purity, nidam, tzniut, Shabbat, they have to know, right, all these things. They have to know all these things. So this is the reason why a woman has to say Birkat Torah, because she does do some divrei Torah throughout the day, in all probability, she'll do some divrei Torah, a Jewish woman, Just in case she doesn't do, by the way, we have an insurance policy for that. What does that mean? You can't say, well, maybe, if she won't do divrei Torah, so it'll be a bracha l'batala, because she didn't do divrei Torah. But we say, right, that we say divrei Torah right after Kriyat Shema. I'm sorry, right after Birkat Torah, we say divrei Torah. So therefore, we're covered by that, right? We don't have any problem with that. We do divrei Torah right away. Vaydaber Adonai, right? We say that passage, El Aaron. Why do we say that? Because just in case you don't say any divrei Torah afterwards, this is going to be your divrei Torah. Right? So there's not going to be any bracha l'batala. So the women are also doing that. So they're covered by that. So this is the reason why they're doing divrei Torah, the women, because they do some halachot, they learn some things, they learn some hashkafa, they learn some Musar books, God knows, right? Whatever, right? Hasidut, whatever it is that they're learning, all kinds of things. They do learn some things. So therefore, right, even though they're not obligated, they're involved in the Torah anyway, in some kind of way. Okay, so Birkat Torah they do. Now, what happens after that for the woman, right? Does she do Psukkah de Zimra? Baruch She'amar Ishtabach, right?
Yes.
So the answer is no. They're not. It's not shy for them. Not relevant for them to do Psukkah de Zimra. So they have to skip that. If they want, they can say it without a bracha. Like they want to do, let's say, the Hallelujahs. And they want to do Az Yashir and Vayivarech David. They could do, but they cannot bless on that because they're not commanded to say to do Psukkah de Zimra. This is the reason why. So therefore, they really don't need to do that.
Can you shut off the lights behind you?
Sure. So they're not obligated to do Psukkah de Zimra, so they can skip that. What about Kriyat Shema? So that's what we're asking about now, right? So are they obligated in Kriyat Shema? So the truth is, as we said, right, they're patur because mitzvah taseh has mangrama. They're not really obligated to Kriyat Shema. So then why they do it? Because there is one of the Rishonim, he writes, it's brought down a bit Yosef. He writes there that it's good they should become mekaber or malchut shamayim anyway. Doesn't mean hag, you know. If they should say Hakadosh Baruch Hu is one, you know. Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. It's a good thing for every Jew to acknowledge that every day, even though they're not really obligated. They're patur, but nevertheless it's a good thing. So therefore, are they obligated to do it? No. Is the minhag to say? Yes. But since they're not obligated to do halacha, to do Kriyat Shema, so therefore they don't have to do all the three parakim, right? Vayomer, Vayayim Shamua, right? They don't have to do that. The custom is, the minhag is they just do the first parak. The first pasuk, first parak, and that's it, right? What do they do after that? Right, exactly, Amidah, right? Amidah is given. So they do Amidah, so they're obligated to do at least one Amidah a day, according to Rambam. According to Tosfot, they have to do 3. But we don't pass like the Tosfot, you know, especially the Sfardim, we don't pass like that. So therefore, a custom like Sfardim is that they do 1, and if they want to be Machmir and do 2, that's good. Like the Mishnah Berurah says, there was a custom, says the Mishnah Berurah. And if they want to do like Tosfot, do 3, so she's Hasidah, you know, she's a very serious, pious woman, this lady, right? They say, by the way, the wife of Maran, right, Margolit, Rabbanit Margolit, you know, Aliyah Shalom. She used to do 3 times a day, Amidah, you know, so she was doing Hasidut, you know, it's very good. It's a very good thing. But if you try to force your wife to do this, you know, maybe not a good idea. You know why? Because a lot of women can't do it. They don't have time, they don't have the concentration. You know, so don't try to push them into praying 3 times a day. Not a good idea, you know? They're not a man. A woman is not a man. A man is not a woman. The Gemara says, right, that the women are a different nation, you know, they're a different ummah. It's like, you know, they're not the same as you. They're made out of different material. You know what I mean? Where do we see that, by the way, in the Talmud? That the women are made out of different material. So it says in the Gemara like this, right? Why are women so hard to assuage after you offended them? You know, if you offend a woman, right, you cause her some grief, right? Why is it so hard to get mechila from her? Why is that?
No.
From a man, it's easier. But for a woman, it's harder. Why is it? What's the reason why?
There's the Shema.
Anybody know that?
That's in the Shema.
When you get married, you'll know.
That's in the Shema. They're weaker.
You'll get married, you'll know what that means.
I'm married, but I don't know.
Oh, you know how it is, right? When you say some bad words to a woman, it takes a long time for her to forgive you. You know, they get offended. You know? They take it to heart. You know? That's how women are. That's their nature. So why is that? So you know what the Gemara says, right? The reason why the women are so hard to appease after you offended them is because HaKadosh Baruch Hu made them out of what? Out of the tzela of Adam HaRishon, right? He took the tzela. What's the tzela? The ribs, right? He took the spare ribs, right? Whatever you could spare, and she made the women out of the ribs. So what does that mean? Bones are hard, right? Ribs are bones. Kashe, you know, difficult. So this is because they're made out of bones, which is hard. So this is the reason why it's hard to appease them. That's what it says in the Gemara. Can you imagine? You know, as opposed to what? As opposed to a man, what was he made out of? Afar min adama, right? He was made out of the dust, of the dirt, of the ground. You know, so dirt is soft. You know what I mean? So you can appease the man easier. But woman, it's gonna be hard for you. She's bones, you know. Ribs, you gotta watch out for the ribs. Oh, be careful. This is the whole thing. So this is the reason why, you know, they're a different nation. They're different people. This is, you know, they have a different character. They're not like the men. You should never think, by the way, you know, some people are foolish. You know, what happens is that when they get married, they think, you know, like my wife is gonna be my chavruta. You know, she's gonna be learning with me all day Torah. You know, we'll be learning Choshen Mishpat, Shulchan Aruch. You know, we'll be learning Bet Yosef. You know, Tur Bet Yosef. Right? Yebia Omer. You know, from Rabbi, you know, Laman. What do you think? Are they going to be learning with your wife these things? Most women don't want to have, you know, they don't have a desire to do these kinds of things.
They're busy.
So you're not going to, exactly, they're too busy for that. So they're doing the housework, raising the children, as you said. So they don't have time for that, you know, and it's not their nature either, you know, to get into this stuff. Most women, it's not the way they are. So what does that mean? That don't think your wife is going to be your chavruta. You're making a big mistake, you know. You better get a male chavruta. right? Somebody who's a guy. Because, right, somebody who's a serious guy, by the way. Not the letzan, one of these guys, who runs off every time. Every time we start some Divrei Torah, everybody runs away, Runs over there, runs over there. People like this, they're not into Torah. They're not interested, right? They're more interested in doing phone calls and, playing with the internet, all kinds of things, They're not so much interested in hearing Divrei Torah. So, whatever, right? Everybody's got their own.
The SRI is not interested.
To each his own. Whatever. So, anyway, right, as we said, women have to do, but here's the question, right? That the minhag is to do Kriyat Shema, as we said, by the women also. They do it as a minhag, not as an obligation. But what about the brachot of Kriyat Shema, the blessings of Kriyat Shema? Right? What about that? Do they have to do that? The truth is, the Chachamim, there's different opinions in Rishonim, by the way, regarding that, regarding the brachot of Kriyat Shema. Some say that the brachot are also from the Torah, just like the Kriyat Shema itself is from the Torah. Also, the brachot are from the Torah as well. It's one package deal. Can you imagine? Even though, obviously, right, the rabbis wrote these brachot, but the Torah commanded them to do so. According to that opinion, that's what it is. So, therefore, right, according to that opinion, the brachot are very, very important. There's also another opinion that says, no, the brachot are derabanan. The rabbi, the Torah didn't command, us to do the brachot of Kriyat Shema. The rabbis made this mitzvah. The more likely scenario, is that, the prevailing opinion is that the brachot are derabanan. They're not from the Torah. That's usually the way we look at it. But either way, right, whether you say that they're from the Torah or not from the Torah, doesn't make any difference, right? What about the women, though? The women are not obligated to say Kriyat Shema, so therefore they cannot do the brachot. What's the reason why? Why can't they do it as a minhag? Just like we said regarding, the Shema itself. Let them do it as a minhag. What's the problem? They cannot do that. Why is that, Avi? Why can't they do the brachot of the Kriyat Shema as a minhag, just like they do the first perek? If you get this one, you're a smart guy. You're a genius. You're a genius. Okay, I'll help you a little bit. I'll help you. So I'll make you into a genius.
Brainbuster.
Okay. So the answer is bracha levatala, right? That's the thing. Who commanded you to make these brachot? You can't make brachot if you weren't commanded to do so. So since the rabbis didn't make these brachot for women, and also the Torah did not make it for women, according to one who says they're from the Torah, either way, they cannot do. So therefore, Maran Rabbi he paskins that women are not allowed to do brachot of Kriyat Shema, even if they want to, as something optional. Not allowed to do that. So therefore, what should they do? Birkat HaShachar, Birkat HaTorah, right? And then they do Kriyat Shema, first pasuk, first perek, and then Amidah. That's it. How long should that take? About 15 minutes, the whole thing, right? That's the woman's obligation is. So, if she reads fast, she went to Bet Yaakov, right? She studied a little bit to Bet Yaakov. So if she went to Bet Yaakov, she reads pretty good, she can finish 10, 15 minutes the whole prayer. Not like us, we need an hour, right? We pray for an hour in the morning.
We pray 15 minutes all the time.
Yeah, so, for us it's a different story altogether, right? They're not obligated to do korbanot, they're not obligated to do hodu, psuke de zimra, ishtabach, they don't do anything these mitzvot. No tachanun, no ketoret, right? They're not obligated to read ketoret. All these things. They're not obligated to any of these things. Shirat hayom, right? What does that have to do with them? Not obligated. So therefore, uval etzion, right? Also, they're not obligated to say uval etzion. None of these things. What about halel? Are women obligated to say halel?
Maybe.
Maybe. That's going to be a good answer. So what's the answer? The answer is no. They're not obligated to say halel. Why? Because it's mitzvah taseh she'agram mazman grama. It's time bound. Always halel is time bound. For a certain holiday, right? Just like Shavuot we did now, right? We did halel 2 days. In Chutz La'aretz we did 2 days. In Eretz Yisrael they did 1 day. Right? That's the way it is. So are women obligated to do halel? No. So therefore, don't tell your wife, don't rack her brains with these things. Tell her, say halel. What halel? What? The women are obligated to do halel? So the answer is the question is like this, right? If they want to say halel, let's say, because they like it, they enjoy it, whatever. Some women are like that, by the way. Some women have told me, oh yeah, I like to say halel, on the holidays, Okay, I'll say okay, if you want to say it, no problem, but one thing, right? Don't say the brachot. Right? Digmor tahalel, right? Melech mehula b'tishbachot. This you're not allowed to say. Why? Because you're not commanded. So if you're not, the rule is, right, safek brachot gaker, right, we don't know, they're not commanded, we don't, for sure. So therefore, it's not even a doubt, right, for sure they're not. So therefore, we don't make the bracha. They're not commanded to do so. So therefore, they don't bless on that. This is the general rule, right, it's always a good rule to know. That whatever you're not commanded to do, you don't bless on it, according to the Rambam. According to Rabbeinu Tam, you're allowed to bless. That's what the Ashkenazim, they do like that. That's why the Ashkenazim, they bless on lulav, the women. They bless on lulav, on netilat lulav, they bless. They bless also on all kinds of things, like shofar, they're not obligated to do these things. So why they bless? Because according to Rabbeinu Tam, you're allowed to. So what the question is, according to Rabbeinu Tam, how is it that a woman is allowed to bless for? By the way, a lot of the Sephardi communities also took on this minhag with the Ashkenazim, and the women started to bless, for the lulav. I'm sure you've seen this, right?
Yeah,
the truth is, if you see a lady who's like Bukharian or Georgian or Persian, tell her don't bless on that. It's better, stay away from that because that's not our custom. Don't become Ashkenazi. You should know, by the way, some people are confused. You know what confuses them? They went to Ashkenazi yeshiva, but they were born in a Sephardi family. You know what I mean? So they think, somehow that they're allowed to do like a hybrid, a little bit Ashkenazi, a little bit, mixture, hybrid model. There's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Yeah, let's try a little bit of that also. Yeah, it's a nice menu, a little bit side dishes.
Do they make without bracha?
Get those side dishes going. French fries, onion rings, all kinds of good tastes. Taste that a little bit, right? But the Maran Achidah, he says not like this, right? He says the Maran Achidah was one of the big Sephardi poskim, right? From 300 years ago. He writes that if a Sephardi does the minhagim of the Ashkenazim, the Ramah, like the Ramah says, he needs to do vidu, he needs kapara on Yom Kippur for that. He did a sin, That's what it means. So don't think that you're allowed to do minhag the Ashkenazim because you went to Ashkenazi yeshiva. No such a thing like that. Who tells you these things, right? We already gave a lecture on that, by the way, one time. We talked about that in length, in depth, regarding this issue. So the truth is, you're not allowed to do that, right? So here also the same thing, The women are not allowed to bless on these things. They should not bless. There's no reason for them. Why get into bracha l'batala, right? What are they going to tell you? When you get upstairs, after your 120th good year, what are they going to tell you? Well, why did you make brachot on these things? You're not obligated to make brachot. So what are you going to tell them? Oh, but the Ashkenazim, I did like the Ashkenazim, but you're not Ashkenazi. What business does that have to do with you? I don't know why people are so. There are people who are.
Could be one reason also they're not allowed to say brachot because of the monthly time.
No, this is no problem. That you should know, by the way, that a woman who has nida, tviurim, she's allowed to hold a sefer Torah, she's allowed, no problem. No problem. Yeah, she's allowed to come to synagogue. Why is that? By the way, why is that she can hold a sefer Torah when she's nida? Because we say there's a rule like this, right? A Torah lo mekabelet tuma, right? A Torah never becomes tameh. No matter what kind of tameh touches it, any tameh person, it never becomes tameh. The Torah purifies you. You don't metameh the Torah. There's no such a thing like that. It's too pure for you to metameh the Torah. You cannot do that. There's no way to metameh the Torah. Understand? Yeah, what do you say?
The woman can make without bracha their lulav?
Of course.
But does it count in having the mitzvah or?
She's patur, but she gets it's a mitzvah to reshut. It's optional mitzvah. What is it? By the way, what does the Rambam say about that? Shulchan Aruch also. They say that a person who does mitzvot, that he's patur, but he does them, as like chassidut, he gets reward for that, but not as much as the one who's chayav. The one who's chayav gets more reward than the one who's patur. Why is that, by the way? What's the reason why?
Chayav?
Why is the one who's chayav gets more reward?
He beats the bad. He does the mitzvah. It's more mitzvah.
Ooh. So what they say, right? The answer is because the person who's chayav to do the mitzvah, he has a yetzer hara not to do it. You understand? So he's fighting the yetzer hara. This is the thing, So since he's fighting the yetzer hara, he gets more reward for that. But the one who's patur from the mitzvah, he has no yetzer hara, about this. So it's easier for them to do the mitzvah. It's easier for them. Not so hard. This is the trick. This is, by the way, sometimes you find there are some women, like sometimes you find them incredible. Like all the time they're reading Tehillim, like all the time. they're involved in some Torah thing, whatever. But the men you don't find the men like that, always reading Tehillim like that. Let's say, like you're on the bus, right? Or you're in the car, I remember my grandmother also was like this. She was always reading Tehillim, every time, all the time I saw her.
My grandmother.
She had it in Georgian, in Georgian language. Can you imagine? She had a Georgian Tehillim. She didn't know how to read Hebrew, but she had it in Georgian. She was reading all the time Tehillim.
My grandmother too.
So why is it that the women are reading Tehillim more than the men? The men are doing other things, getting distracted, looking at the mountains, looking at the bridges, and all kinds of things, The women are also, you know why? Because they're patur. They're not obligated to debate Torah. Right. So they have no Yetzer Hara for that, you understand? So for them it's easier to do. But for the men, because Yetzer Hara is always trying to push you and say, oh, don't learn Torah. Look at those mountains over there, the Adirondacks, whatever. Look at those, right? The Catskills. Look at those nice mountains, the Rocky Mountains, right? What are you looking at? You know it says in Pirkei Avot about this, right? It says in Pirkei Avot. A person is learning Torah, and he gets diverted, and starts looking at nature. Keilu is Chayab Mitah, as if he's like Chayab Mitah. Why? Because he's going from Divrei Torah to watching nature. Where are you going? You went into foul territory. You know what I mean? Like they say in baseball. You know what I mean? You went into foul territory. What happened to you? You were learning Torah and now became a nature man. That's what it says in Pirkei Avot. Keilu Chayab B'nafsho. Right? That's what it says. Unbelievable. So you see from there that. So here's the thing, right? The women. That's why, women have sometimes more zchut than the men. You know why? Because they can do things sometimes the men cannot do. There are certain things, they can do better. Just like we find in history, there were certain things. The Chet Egel, they didn't take part in that. Chet Egel. They didn't want to give their jewelry to make the Egel. Only the men gave. Women did not give, right? So in some ways the women are superior. This is the thing, Why is that? Because of their unique nature, as I said, they have a different nature. They're different people. It's a different thing, So that's why the truth is, Rabbi, I must tell you one thing, that it says in the, it's a good way to finish this darash. I went to do Arvit, but what it says right about a woman. The person gets married to a woman. You may think, well, yeah, she's just a wife. She just washes my dishes, and does my laundry, and cooks my dinner. So you may think, like she's not so important, she's just like my maid servant, yeah, she's just there to serve me, But the truth is, the woman is much bigger than that. You would think that's what she's there for, only for that?
She protects you.
They say, the Chazal, in the Midrash, they say that usually what happens is that when a man marries a certain woman, he turns out to be just like her. In other words, she influences him more than anything else. So therefore, if he marries a Rasha, Mirshat, a bad woman, he also becomes a Rasha. That's what it says. So the woman is everything, she makes the man into what he is in many ways. They say, there's stories about this brought down in Midrash. They say there was a guy who was a tzaddik, he was ben Torah and learning, and doing mitzvot and everything, and then he married a bad woman and he got messed up. She messed him up, So a woman can build you to become Gedol Ador, she wants, like Rabbi Akiva's wife, Rachel. She's the one who made him, because she told him, come on, sit and learn, go into kollel, I'll support the family, go. When your wife tells you like that, what are you going to tell her? No? What can you say when your wife tells you, go to kollel, go and sit there, learn for 24 years? Who can say no to something like that? You have to be an idiot, you have to be a total fool. You know what I mean? So what's the lesson from that? The lesson is, woman makes you into everything that you are. So be careful who you marry, what kind of, don't marry a woman who's not rawiyah, what does that mean? She's not God-fearing woman, because she'll mess you up. I just saw recently, to be honest with you, I don't want to mention anything, there was somebody in our community who just got married recently. And, so we all know him, and he moved to a different neighborhood, but I saw him the other day on Main Street, dressed like modern, his wife, is also dressed very modern. I was like, what happened with this guy, he was, all of a sudden he became so modern. because he didn't marry the proper kind of woman. This is what happened to him. Became more modern. They're not dressing tzniut. The woman is not tzniut so much. She's not wearing garbaim. She's not wearing stockings. This is the way to go for religious people. This is not the way to go. Shem Yachem. So be careful. A woman can build you, or she can destroy you. God forbid. And everything depends on her. So make sure you pick properly. ברוך ה' לעולם, אמן אמן. רבי חנניה בן הקשה, מייצג הקדוש ברוך הוא ובזכות ישראל. לפי כך ירבה להם תורה ומצוות של עולמי חפש, למען צדקו יגדיל תורה וידיר.
אמן.
אמן, אמן, אמן. אמן.